For the purpose of this story, I'll refer to myself as Adrian. This happened about 1.5 years ago when I moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. I had just started a new job, and one of the first things I did after settling in was sign up for a nearby gym. It wasn't a huge commercial gym like some of the big chains. It was smaller, open 24 hours, and mostly used by people who lived in the neighborhood. The kind of place where after a couple of weeks you start recognizing the regulars, even if you've never spoken to them. Because of my work schedule, I usually went pretty late at night. Most nights I arrived somewhere between 10:30 and 11 p.m. I liked going at that time because the gym was quiet. Sometimes there would only be 2 or 3 other people inside. After about 2 weeks of going consistently, I started noticing a guy I hadn't seen before. He looked like he was somewhere in his late 30s, medium height, thin build, short dark hair. What stood out most about him, though, was that he always wore the same gray hoodie, even while working out. At first, I didn't think much of it. A lot of people keep their hoodies on while warming up. But after seeing him a few nights in a row, I realized something strange. I never actually saw him lift any weights. He would just sit on different machines around the gym. Sometimes the leg press, sometimes the seated row, sometimes a bench near the dumbbells, but he wouldn't move the weights at all. He would just sit there, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, and almost every time I looked up toward the mirrors, he was looking directly at me. At first, I assumed it was just coincidence. Maybe we just happened to glance at each other at the same time. But it kept happening. Every time our eyes met, he would immediately look away. The whole thing started making me uncomfortable. One night, I was doing bench press, and I looked up toward the mirror across the room. He was sitting on a chest press machine behind me. Except this time, he wasn't looking away. He was just staring, completely still. I held eye contact for a second, expecting him to look away like usual, but he didn't. Eventually, I looked away first because the whole situation felt awkward. After that night, I started noticing him more. No matter where I went in the gym, he somehow seemed to end up nearby. If I moved to the squat rack, a few minutes later he would sit on a machine facing that direction. If I went to the cable machine, he'd slowly wander over and sit on a bench close enough that it felt intentional. Another weird thing was that he never used his phone. Most people at the gym scroll through their phones between sets, but he never did. He would just sit there, watching. Eventually, I convinced myself I was probably overthinking it. Maybe he had social anxiety or something and wasn't comfortable actually working out around people. So I ignored it and continued my routine. Then one night, something happened that made things a lot stranger. I finished my workout around midnight and went to the locker room to grab my bag. When I came back out, I noticed the guy standing near the front desk. The gym had a small monitor there that showed all the security camera feeds, and he was staring at it really closely, like he was studying something. When he saw me walk out of the locker room, he immediately stepped away from the screen, like he wasn't supposed to be there. He quickly walked toward the exit without saying anything. That moment stuck in my mind the entire drive home. After that night, I started feeling uneasy whenever I saw him. Still, I kept going to the gym.
I didn't want to completely change my routine over something that might just be my imagination. But about a week later, something happened that completely changed how I felt about the situation. I finished my workout around 11:45 p.m. and walked out to the parking lot. The lot wasn't very big, maybe 20 spaces total. Most of them were empty at that time of night. As I walked toward my car, I noticed a vehicle parked 2 spaces away. The engine was running, but the headlights were off. As I got closer, I realized someone was sitting inside, and as soon as I got within about 10 feet, the interior light turned on. It was the same guy from the gym. He was sitting in the driver's seat, looking directly at me. Not at his phone, not at the dashboard, just staring straight ahead at me. I tried to ignore it and quickly got into my car. When I started the engine and looked in my rearview mirror, he slowly turned his head toward my car. Then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It looked more like he found something amusing. I left the parking lot immediately. The entire drive home, I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see his car following me. Thankfully, it wasn't. After that night, I started feeling paranoid every time I went to the gym. A few days later, I decided to try going earlier in the evening instead, around 7 p.m. I figured if he had a late-night schedule, he probably wouldn't be there. The first 2 times I went earlier, I didn't see him, and honestly, I felt relieved. I started thinking maybe the problem had solved itself. But about 2 weeks later, something happened that made my stomach drop. I walked into the gym around 7:15 p.m., and he was already there, sitting on a bench near the entrance, looking directly at the door. The moment I walked in, he smiled again, like he had been expecting me. That night, I rushed through my workout and left early. As I walked out of the gym, I noticed his car parked across the street, facing the entrance. The engine was off this time, but someone was inside, watching the building. I didn't stick around long enough to see if it was him. I just drove home. A few nights later, something even worse happened. I was lying in bed around midnight, trying to fall asleep, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Instagram, a new message request from an account I didn't recognize. The username was just a random combination of numbers and letters. No profile picture, no posts. The message only said one thing: "Good workout tonight." My stomach immediately dropped. I hadn't posted anything about going to the gym, and none of my friends knew I had gone earlier that day. There was no way someone could know that unless they had been there. I didn't reply. I just blocked the account. For the next few weeks, I stopped going to the gym completely. Eventually, I canceled my membership and signed up at another gym across town. I never saw the guy again after that. But the thing that still bothers me the most is how he somehow knew when I changed my workout schedule. It makes me wonder if he had been watching me a lot longer than I realized. And if that's the case, I probably noticed him far later than I should have.